Continue an RV or what?
No, we might do a little bit of that.
You don't have anything in your pocket.
do we have a request to speak? Yeah, she's not. Did you get another piece? Okay. I'm gonna have her. She's. No. Please? Yeah. Because if she does, she needs to fill out a form. Hey, before we begin our meeting tonight, if you would please put your devices to off or silence. Ready? This time, the mayor will call to order the regular city council meeting for 7 p.m. Tuesday, January 17th, 2023. City council chambers, 201 East Nash Street, Terrell, Texas. We have with us Grady Simpson, District 2, Andrea Reese, District 5. Not with us, but excused is District 3, Mayor Ronnie Velasquez, Mayor Pro Tem. Has anybody heard from District 4? Stephanie Holmes Thomas. She's on her way, so she's going to be delayed a little bit. We do have a quorum, so we may continue with the meeting. At this time, if you would please stand, and Grady, would you lead us in invocation and remain standing for the pledge to the flags? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible. So next on the agenda is the mayor, council community recognitions and events. Council, do y'all have anything that y'all would like to recognize? Anyone or anything? I would like to say that we were at the MLK celebration at TISD, Jamie Foxx Performing Arts Center. And we had the judge there, we had Early Wiley, the district attorney there, and our citizens were there. And it's always good to see the community to come together for these types of events. I would like to ask for Lindsay Demain to come forward. Lindsay is fast at work earning all of her WIBLO requirements to be accepted into the Scout Troop 1857, is that correct? In April, based in Forney, Texas. She came in looking for council members to interview this afternoon. No one was here, but you did get the mayor, and one of her requirements is to attend a council meeting. Right, so she wanted to see how things operate. Is there something you would like to tell the council? Or she's 10 years old, and she attends Wood Elementary in Terrell. So She did come back, like she said, so I have a little gift I'd like to give you. Oh, no, they're right there. And Andrea, I think you know the family, right? So, thank you for coming, right? And I hope that you get accepted, and if there's anything we can do, you let Hamilton know, and she'll get you the further. Okay? I think Lindsay may be a reporter someday. She had quite the questions for the mayor, and I was off the record on most of those, so. All right. Anyone else have any community recognitions or events that they would like to bring forward? Hearing none, our next item on the agenda is adoption of the minutes. Hear remarks from visitors, I'm sorry. And we do have someone who would like to address the council. If you would, please come forward. This is an opportunity for citizens to participate in the meeting, and they have an opportunity to speak to the council, but it's not a back and forth. So if you would, please come forward. State your name and your address, please.
Okay. My name is Michelle Frazier. My address is 405 West Cottage Street, Terrell, Texas, 75160. Start speaking?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to ask for additional time because I am going to reference 2 rental properties. I am standing here today because on January the 1st, 2023, I took over ownership of 409 West Cottage Street, Unit A and B. Since then, I've had to clear out the sewage line twice, and today is January the 17th. The sewer line, it bags up frequently from the city side of Terrell. This has been going on for several years, and the tenant says that nothing is being done except that the city comes out and blows the line. I guess I'm standing here today because I refuse to be liable for medical bills or recovery because of lack of urgency to correct the problem. When you come up to the apartment complex, it is a turnoff for prospective renters because there is feces that bags up into the tub and the sink, which is unsanitary, and it's causing the overflow is causing damage to the floors, along with mildew, which is hazardous to a person's health. Also, another thing that affects the renters, they pull up to look at the place, and if the sewer is bagged up, it's usually a big turd on the sidewalk. It's like turds, and I don't want to keep having to rake doo-doo turds. I mean, that's nasty. That's nasty. Okay. Okay, the second thing that I'm here for is 4510 Campbell Street. At this residence, an elderly couple live there. I found out this morning that the gentleman there has been hospitalized for the past 2 days. I did not get information because, some things are private, but he has been in the hospital for the past few days. They're disabled veterans, which requires the assistance and support of an animal, of an assistant animal. Okay, they're at 410 Campbell Street. they're also having sewer problems. The tenant says that there is no open flush sewer line or sewer pump at the end. It's just floods the drainage line. And he says that when it bag up into the septic tank, there is no drainage. So since there's no place for the drainage to go, it overflows into my tenant's yard. He thinks that it is suggested that the city might need to put PCP pipes to around it so that it would not bag up into the sewer line. He says that it smells, it causes a dirty commode because the feces and things that's coming up out of there is it comes up in the commode and in the sink as it does on Cottage Street. He says it smell, it's hazardous again, it's an unsanitary problem. He said dirt, feces, and other black unidentified waste products come out of the pipes and bag into the yard. And also, he was saying that if someone from the city would come out and dig the ditches or trenches or whatever, then this it's not going to stop the problem because the sewer line is the problem. And the drainage area is the problem. And, from January the 1st, since I took over, to the 17th, it is becoming very expensive to try to get someone out to blow those lines out. But once the city come out and do it, then it's fine. I have some pictures here, and I'm gonna end. I have some pictures here that I took of the problem. I had a guy to blow out the line, and I was curious on how far the rubber hose went out before he ran into something. And if you look at this, it's all the way on the city. It's on the city side where it started to stop up. Also on Cottage and Hattie, the guy that lives there, he has the same problem. He calls the city come blows it out, and a few days later, it's back the same way. Now, when we were blowing out, when I had this guy to blow out the line, some water came up from somewhere that wasn't there at first. So I don't know where the water came from, but I took a picture of that because we didn't know if it looked like it was just coming out the ground. I don't know. I have another picture here. I also have a picture of the inside of the apartment where mold and mildew is beginning to ruin the sheetrock, and the floor is beginning to unstick. And this picture, I don't know if it's a picture of the turd or not, but it's in here. And then the other one on Cottage Street, I have pictures where you can see where the ditches really do need to be dug out, because, when it rains, it just floods back up in the yard. I took a picture of the sewer line and another thing, and just some pictures there. And that's all I have to say. I appreciate it. I will leave these pictures with you guys so that you can have them on record. And I also included a picture of the beautiful mural that is going up. That is, it recognizes a lot of our community leaders that have, did things here in Terrell. So.
Yes, ma'am. So we'll give them to staff. If you'll give them to staff,
Oh,
then they'll
okay.
take care of it.
Okay.
As I stated earlier, it's not an opportunity for us to do a back and forth, but staff will reach out to you and work things through. All right? Our next item on the agenda is Adoption of the minutes. This is item 6.1. Discuss and consider approval of the minutes from the regular city council meeting on January 10th of 2023. Is there a motion on item 6.1? Is there a second?
Second.
Have before we take the vote, let the record show that Stephanie Holmes Thomas, Deputy Mayor Pro Tem of District 4, is with us now. So I have a motion from Grady Simpson, District 2, and Andrea Reese, District 5, to approve the minutes of the regular city council meeting of January the 10th as presented. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries with unanimous vote of those present. Our next item on the agenda is 7.1. Greg, would you read that into record?
Mr. Mayor, item 7.1 is to conduct a public hearing to receive comments regarding a request for a specific use permit to allow the use of a smoke shop and CBD novelties storefront on a property currently zoned as Light Industrial, LI. The property is located at 1880 Westmore Avenue, Suite 4, City of Terrell, Kaufman County, Texas, SUP 22-04.
This will be handled by our Senior Director of Capital and Projects, Steve Rogers. Mr. Rogers.
Good evening, Mayor. I don't see the applicant with us tonight. Again, this is a suite at 1880 Westmore Avenue to do a smoke shop and CDB novelties storefront. This requires a specific use permit because this property is zone light industrial. You can see on the map here that Dawn has pulled up. There's the property in the triangle. There's a strip shop there. Just to the east of it is CVS. And then to the west of it is actually zone commercial, and that's some other strip shop there and Jack in the Box. And then back behind it at the top of this page, zone commercial, is the Walmart store. And so the zoning here were, again, Arby's, McDonald's, CVS, and this strip shop is all zone light industrial. And so the applicant's making use of the fact that this property is actually used as retail and zone light industrial to make this request. Otherwise, it would not be allowed if it were zoned as it's being used. So I want to read you the definition of a smoke shop from the zoning ordinance. It's a retail establishment which tobacco or tobacco derivatives, electronic cigarettes, smoking devices, pipes, accessories, associated products, paraphernalia, liquid products containing nicotine flavors, and other substances intended for use in electronic cigarettes. Definition includes smoke shops, cigar stores, head shops, vape shops, and they're restricted to persons 21 years of age or older. So we sent out letters on this. This was on the P&Z December 15th agenda. Again, the property's current zoning is inconsistent with the use. The comp plan designates this area as local commercial. P&Z voted 7-0 to deny this SUP. And with that, I'll answer any questions, Mayor.
Does anybody have any questions for Steve regarding this SUP?
Is this here kind of in that area where the subway is?
This is, it is, some of that stuff's changed in there. I'm trying to think of what was there where there's an empty store. There's a Great Clips, I believe, and then Pizza Hut, and then there's something else, and then this is right in that area there, yes. And again, I think just to further show you, there's a couple of pictures in here, if Dawn would be so kind as to flip to those pictures in there. This is another store that they have to give you an idea. Thank you. Right there is one picture, and I believe there's another one to show you the kind of products that are in there.
Thank you, Steve. Oh, one more? Yes.
Okay, so try to explain to me again, is this permissible under the zoning, or what is it? Kind of
It is permissible by SUP and light industrial zoning. However, the use surrounding this is all retail, so this is not zoned properly and the zoning hasn't been changed here. So the applicant's taking advantage of a loophole to request this SUP under the light industrial zoning that it currently is.
So generally, we want retail here?
Yes, ma'am. I would think, again, that your comp plan calls for local commercial, so something commercial retail would be preferred.
Anyone? All right, this is a public hearing, so at this time, we will open the public hearing and to receive comments regarding the request for a specific use permit. Is there anyone here to speak on this matter? Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing and move on to item 7.2. Greg?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, we bring to you tonight for consideration ordinance number 2947, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Terrell, Kaufman County, Texas, granting a specific use permit under the provisions of Section 31B, Appendix 2, zoning ordinance of the City of Terrell, Terrell G&B Ventures, allowing an exception to the provisions of Section 30, Appendix 2, zoning ordinance of the City of Terrell for certain property located at 1880 Westmore Avenue, the same also being known as Lot 1, Block A, Terrell Original, City of Terrell, Kaufman County, Texas, by permitting a smoke shop and CBD location on said property currently zoned as Light Industrial, LI, providing for the repeal of conflicting ordinances, providing for severability, and providing an effective date, SUB 22-01. This comes to you tonight on first reading, and as a reminder to the council, given that the P&Z voted in opposition to this, this would require a 3/4 vote of the council to overturn the recommendation of the P&Z.
So, council, as we move forward with it, again, this is a 7-0 vote by our P&Z and would require 3/4 vote. Now, if you want to move forward with the recommendation of the P&Z, we would move to accept the P&Z Commission recommendation to deny the SUP. So that would be the motion if that's you're so inclined. But at this time, does anybody have any further questions? So we can't discuss each other, but Steve, if you would please come forward until we have a motion, then we can engage. All right, Grady, is this to? Oh, I didn't know if you wanted to ask.
Okay, all right. Yes, Mr. Rogers, one question I have about this business. I understand why P&Z would deny. Are they open?
Grady, would you turn your mic on, please?
It's not on, sir. It's not even.
It won't work? Use the next one.
There we go. Would they be open to maybe relocating somewhere in Terrell where they can? Is there any way that we, the city, can work with them to maybe relocate or have to continue their business? From looking at the pictures, I mean, they're like they got a pretty professional establishment. I would just hate to just turn the back on them and say, no, we can't help you, but maybe give them some options.
Well, I think potentially if you're going to concur with P&Z, then you're sending a message, we don't want you here. We can certainly follow up with the applicant and let them know there may be other opportunities if that's what y'all would choose to do, to relocate in the city in the proper zoning.
But I don't see it as saying that we don't want them here.
At this location.
But they seem to be denied because of how the location is zoned. I definitely don't want to send that message, we don't want you here. I mean, that would be a bad impression. But if, I was just thinking maybe moving forward, we can maybe give them another option possibly if it is denied through a majority council.
We're happy to talk to the applicant, yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right, does anybody else have any comments to Greg? Hearing none, is there a motion on 7.2?
Mayor, excuse me, is this supposed to be, if it's denied, it's supposed to be phrased as 2947, denied as by the P&Z?
So we're moving to accept the recommendation of the P&Z to deny ordinance number 2947.
Okay.
right? Wait, let's make sure.
It's to-
There is no ordinance yet, so
It would be to accept the recommendation of the
Yeah.
P and Z.
Yes, Mayor, may I make a motion that we accept the recommendation of the P and Z?
okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second. Is there any discussion on this item? Hearing none, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries with unanimous vote of those present. Our next item on the agenda is 7.3.
Mr.
Greg?
Mayor, members of the council, item 7.3, we conduct a public hearing to receive comments regarding a planned development townhouse residential, PD-TH, base zoning on 8.984 acres of land, City of Terrell, Kaufman County, Texas. The property is located on the southeast corner of Rose Hill Road and the future Windsor Road. The property will be developed into townhouses for a 55-plus gated community of senior living, PD-22-04.
Steve?
Yes, Mayor and Council, the applicant came to P and Z in November. They tabled it, they asked some questions. The applicant went back and retooled their plan slightly to try to meet the spirit of what P and Z had asked them to do. This property is, if you don't mind, don't go to the map there, thank you, was originally placed in a PD in 2018. And so the subject property we're talking about tonight is the yellow highlighted property. It did have common ownership with the red, so the red and the yellow were owned by the same person. They created one PD that covered everything. There were different uses for the red portion and for the yellow portion. And basically, if you'll go one more page, please, the yellow portion had this site plan to allow townhomes in this area on the corner of Rose Hill and Windsor Avenue here. And so this was just a basic site plan with no other development standards or anything else like that. So they're coming forward to you tonight with, thank you, with PD 2204. And this is this layout here, and I'll give you some of the particulars in this that we have discussed with them. They're going to form an HOA on this property for maintenance of the common areas and the amenity center and the clubhouse. They are going to build an amenity center and clubhouse as well. It's a gated community, so they'll be gated with an entrance and exit off Rose Hill Road. And if you're looking at Rose Hill Road's on the left side of this map, Windsor's on the top of the page there. And so if you note, there's 3 driveways going on to Windsor, and the one to the far east is a entrance and exit gate, the one to the far right. The other 2 are just there as gates for fire access if needed, but they will generally be closed all the time or for exit only. Generally speaking, they won't be coming and going from those. So you have one entrance and exit on Rose Hill, one entrance and exit on Windsor. The minimum house space is going to be 1,200 square feet. The building and landscape standards include a 6-foot brick fence on Windsor and on Rose Hill Road. So if you look at the bottom left-hand corner, they've added a depiction of a brick fence there. And so if I'm on the Rose Hill Road side or the Windsor side, those are going to be 6-foot brick fences is what they're proposing with wrought iron gates. And then on the south side and the east side, it's going to be a 6-foot cedar plank fence is what they've proposed in here on their site plan. Again, this was, letters were sent out. P&Z reviewed this at their December 15th meeting and voted 7 to nothing to approve this site plan as it is. Embedded within the items you have in your packets, okay, Don, just stay on the map there. There's some development standards that are embedded in here starting on page 44 of your agenda that kind of go over the development standards of this, and some of the particulars of that are contained within those pages there that we just talked about. And so, Mayor, the applicant is here, and they will want to speak when you open the public hearing. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Let's hear the discussion and then have you come back up and see if maybe they might answer
That's fine.
some questions. So at this time, we will open the public hearing to receive comments regarding the planned development townhouse residential zoning, the PD 2204, the senior living 55 plus gated. If you would please come forward, state your name and comments, either for or against.
Good afternoon, everybody. For the record, Pat Atkins, Saddle Star Development Partners with Terrell Capital Ventures on the development of Windsor Senior Homes. Honorable Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, members of the council, Pat Atkins, 614 Summer Oaks, Rockwall, Texas. As Mr. Roberts and staff has eloquently done throughout the process, we bring to you a product of detached residential. The original zoning was for attached townhouses. What we bring to you is the detached residential product, which will have the restrictions of over 55 market for the seniors. So we're excited to make that modification, bring it to you, and really appreciated the commission's support and guidance that they gave us as we went through the process. As Mr. Roberts always does, he's presented the particulars in detail and very well. We've agreed with all the changes and modifications that we've been through. It's a great product, and we look forward to starting construction and going through the processes we need to get it under construction. And I would be glad to answer any questions of council that you may have.
This is just a public comment section, so you can address the council, and then we'll take notes, and then we'll visit with staff. So
Understand?
yes. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else to speak on behalf of this item? Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing. Steve, if you would please, Mr. Rogers, I'm sorry. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Rogers?
So Rogers, how many units are gonna be there?
So
You know,
total unit count right now? 70. 70. And in the interest of full disclosure, the discussion we had at P&Z in November that bled over into December was the discussion about parking. Each of the units has a garage and has a driveway that's big enough to park a car on. There was concern about cars parking in the street and having additional parking. So as you can see on here, kind of in the middle of the development, they added about 15 parking places there. Then up by the amenity center, they've added another dozen up there to try to provide some remote parking and overflow parking for different reasons there. And I think that helped Planning and Zoning Commission get over the hump on that for their vote.
I'm also curious to, like, aesthetically, it's a pretty simple design. This is pretty much what when you look at the front and side elevation, that's kind of what it looked like.
Yes, ma'am. I mean, they've got, if you notice in here, they've got other products like that, and they provided some very nice color renderings. You can look at page 40, if you would, and page 41. You can kind of see that's kind of a front view and a side view of what one of the townhomes, and then there's your amenity center and your at the top and your clubhouse at the bottom there.
These lots, how wide are they? It's on 30.
There it is.
Do we know the width of the lot?
Yeah, we're getting there.
90 feet by 35 feet.
I want to say they're 50 foot deep and 35 wide. I believe that's correct. Does that sound correct? Yeah. 35 wide and 50
Page
deep.
36 shows those numbers.
Say again, I'm sorry.
Page 36 has the numbers you're looking for.
Thank you.
90 by 35 is the lot size.
90 by 35, thank you. Need somebody with better eyesight. Mr.
I just
Simmons,
barely.
help me with that.
Anybody have any more questions for Steve? Mr. Rogers, I'm sorry. Does anybody have any more questions for Mr. Rogers?
Will the yards, can they fence their yards, or will their yards all be open to each other?
Part of what's unusual about it is that the lot is designed so that the wall of your house is your property line on one side. And so instead of having two side yards that are relatively small, they give you a side yard on one side, a rear yard, and that is designed to be something that the resident can get fenced, yes.
I was wondering just because of pets and.
Right, yeah. The idea is if you're a senior, maybe you're alone as a senior, then this is a kind of a product that's just a small-scale product for a particular housing type. And I would say that the P&Z had a lot of discussion at the November meeting that I happened to be at about, well, you know, what kind of senior living products are out there, and do we have a diversity of senior living products? We don't have this particular kind of senior living product right now. And I think once the parking issues were discussed through, that's what got P&Z to the point of being content. It's really, if the market can show that there's a market for it, then P&Z was willing to go along with an innovative and different idea.
Just want the staff to keep in mind, I'd like these opportunities throughout the community, not just in development areas. I do think there's a lot of seniors living, a lot of centurions, and we need to take care to make sure we have housing adequate throughout the community for these people. So I just want the staff to keep that in the back of their mind. That's my stance, 35-foot wide lot. But I do think we need housing, but I'd like to see it kind of throughout the community, so that's my stance.
Anyone else? For Steve? Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Greg, next item on the agenda is 7.4.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, we bring to you tonight on first reading ordinance number 2944, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Terrell, Kaufman County, Texas, providing for the creation of a planned development townhouse residential PD-TH under the provisions of Section 31A, Appendix 2, zoning ordinance of the City of Terrell on certain real property described as 8.984 acres of land out of the John C. Hale survey, abstract number 202, Kaufman County, Texas, being located on the southeast corner of Rose Hill Road and the future Windsor Road, and more particularly described by meets and bounds on the plat thereof, attached hereto as Exhibit A and made a part hereof for all purposes, providing for the repeal of conflicting ordinances, providing for severability, and providing an effective date, PD 22-04.
Thank you, Mr. Shumpert. Again, council, this was a 7-0 vote by our P&Z. We've usually went with them, but again, this is up for discussion. So is there a motion on ordinance number 2944?
May I make a motion that we approve ordinance number 2944?
Have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion from Grady Simpson, District 2, and a second from Andrea Reese, District 5, to accept ordinance number 2944 as presented. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes with unanimous vote of those present. Our next item on the agenda is item 8.1, discuss Library Advisory Board appointments. This is our City Secretary, Don Stahl.
Mayor and council, there is a roster for the library board in your packet. There are 2 open spaces that need to be replaced on that board, and there are 2 applications in the packet, one for Angie Cooper and one for Shantavia Cheeves. And this will be brought back next week for action, and this falls under the oversight of Stephanie Holmes-Thomas.
All right. Ms. Holmes-Thomas, what would you like to do with this, these recommendations? Do you have any,
I'd like to reach
anything?
out. I'll reach out
Okay.
to these young ladies and talk to them and see.
Does anybody have any comments this is a discussion item, so does anybody have any comments for Ms. Holmes as she moves forward? On any of them? Okay, good.
So let me ask
Yes.
this. One lives on where's the other? Can I see the other one? Okay, okay. If you guys, I'm open to suggestions. If you know anybody in your district that are interested, I'd sure like to see those applications.
As always, I want to thank the council for their work on these boards and reviewing the applicants as we move forward. I guess we'll come back next week with a recommendation. Is that correct, Don? Okay. So, Stephanie, will you be good?
I'll be
next?
ready.
All right, wonderful.
So much.
Next item on the agenda is 8.2, discuss zoning board of adjustments, reappointment and appointment. This is Don Style again.
Mayor and council, in your packet is the zoning board of adjustments roster. Matthew Hancock's term will be up in February, as well as Ashley Carmona of Five Coats. I've reached out to both, and I did hear back from Matthew Hancock. He does wish to be reappointed. We also need to replace Carolyn Fairley. So there are three places open on that board. And at this time, we don't have any applicants. Maybe by next week we will, and I'll bring this back next week.
So this is Andrea Reese.
Yes, this falls under Andrea Reese.
All right. Andrea, you have any comments? Or?
Just that if any of the council has suggestions on possible board members, I would love to hear your suggestions on that.
All right.
And hopefully we'll hear back from Ashley.
Okay, great. If you have anyone interested in the zoning board of adjustments, council, if you would please get that name to Andrea. Again, thank you for your service on the board. And we'll look at those applicants next Tuesday as well. Next item on the agenda is discuss planning and zoning board reappointment. City Secretary Don Style.
Mayor and council, in your packet is the Planning and Zoning Commission roster. We have Gabriel Cabrera his term will expire in February, and he is the only person that needs to be reappointed on this board. I have not heard back from him. I should know something by next Tuesday, and this falls under Mayrani Velasquez.
Yeah, I spoke with Mayrani earlier before the meeting, and she should be ready to appoint next Tuesday. Next item on the agenda is discussion items. Discuss operating agreement with the Lawrence Water Supply Corporation. This is Mr. John Godwin.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This goes back to one of the items I talked about last week with Lawrence Water Supply Corporation. We're taking over the CCNs in the area of Lawrence that overlaps the city limits. That's about 65% of their customers are actually already inside the city limits, and so we're going to take that over, take over the city limits, and also take over the ownership of all of the infrastructure that's inside the city limits. Our original plan, not to go into too much history, our original plan was to try to make that as least impactful of anybody out there, so that basically it was kind of a paper change that nobody really, customers out there, whether they were citizens or whether they were outside the city, they wouldn't really notice the difference. The same people would keep operating because we're going to have dual certification, and we were going to have a lease back, purchase it and then lease it back to them. And talked about that last week. PUC, they don't really like that creativity, so we're going to go backwards and do just a traditional take it over. But we still need somebody to operate that system, and it's not a very efficient system. It's also way out to the west, so it's a trip for our folks to have to go out there to operate that system. There's maintenance, there's late night calls, there's leaks, there's installations, all those kinds of things. So your field folks would have an extra deal out there. So we have worked with Lawrence as our Plan B, which is in some ways is probably better than our Plan A anyway. And that is that we will hire them as a contractor, basically. A lot of cities do this. Usually they do it with companies. A lot of companies across the country that do this, especially usually for small cities, they'll come in and operate their system for them, so they don't have to hire employees, don't have to hire staff, and have the liabilities and so forth and so on. And so this is the interlocal agreement, in this case with Water Supply Corporation. It's not quite a special district, but it has some of the same sort of authority, so they're allowed by state law to enter into an interlocal agreement with the city. And in this case, I go into quite a number of pages of, this is the stuff you have to do. Basically, it's you have to maintain it, you have to read the water bills, read the water meters, you have to send out the water bills, you have to fix things, you have to respond any time of the day or not. In other words, every single thing you're doing right now, you have to keep doing it just as well, if not better. So I've got performance standards in there. I've got all the things that they're required to do. And in some cases, I have language in there where I actually talk about you have to do the same thing for our people, because they will technically be our customers. Again, when you take over the CCN, that property, all those people will be City of Terrell customers. They will just be served by these folks. Now, the second part of that, which we kind of have struggled with a little bit, was because as city customers, typically they would have the same rates as the other city customers. Their rates out there, because again, it's an inefficient system all by itself, kind of small with 700 some odd customers in a relatively old system. But we can actually pass an ordinance. We'll come back with that at some point in time, next month after next, somewhere in the future, come back with an ordinance in which we can actually adopt that group of people as a special class of customers. And they qualify as a special class of customers because there is an extra expense that other customers across the City of Terrell are not paying, and that is they have to pay these people to operate the system. So bottom line, with a lot of, I could give you a lot more details that would not be terribly exciting. Bottom line is, if you live on so-and-so street and your neighbor right beside you, one of you ends up in the city CCN and the other one stays in the Lawrence CCN, nothing's going to change. The same guy that comes by and reads your meter is going to read your meter. The same guy that fixes your meter or fixes your water line or does whatever in the middle of the night, it's going to be the same people, same thing over and over and over. We have tried to put some standards in there, like I said, maybe a little extra. You have to have something on your truck or on your shirt or on your hat that shows you really do work for Lawrence. They use a lot of contractors themselves. They got one part-time maintenance person who also reads the meters. They got one part-time person in the office, and they got one part-time general manager. So we want to make sure that they're readily identified, because those are your citizens, and you want them to have quality service. I think that's everything I probably want to tell you. Now, there's some stuff in there with one other thing, for what it's worth. Because you own the system now, one of the things that's a potential issue is they call up Mike McKeska or Mike Sims, one of the Mikes, and say, hey, there's a big leak out here, and that's more than just maintenance. And we don't want to spend $17,000 of our money to fix your water line. We have that in there, and so I actually have a standard that has to be at least this much money, and it has to be not just this much money to replace or repair something. It has to be capital maintenance, capital repair, capital replacement. It has to be a minimum amount of money, and it has to be have a life cycle of at least 5 years. So if you're just fixing a broken line, too bad, it's your line, you sign the contract, and you're supposed to take care of stuff. You're always going to have water leaks in a water system, and so those kinds of things are their responsibility. So it's just really trying to make sure the responsibility is clear to either part. We don't know how long this will last. Two things will probably affect that. One is the growth out there. As you know, a new water line is going to be going down Highway 80 at some point in the future to serve the Hines development out there, North Spur, just above them and a little bit to the east of them, both, but mostly above them, north of them. I think of maps, I always say above and to the left, but instead of using my real directions, but I know the directions. And so that'll have some impact on them because we'll be serving through there. That's going to get a big, nice, brand-new line on Highway 80 versus the line they have now that's not really adequate to handle some of that customer. And then just in general, at some point, if quality ever goes down, if those two whole employees they have retire or something goes wrong, at any time you want to, you can give them 180 days notice and say, okay, we're going to do it ourselves. That's inevitable. Because the city's going to grow out there, obviously, just talking about North Spur and some other stuff that'll be coming after North Spur. And it won't be so inconvenient or inefficient for you and to have your field folks out there taking care of it. It just does right now. So whether that's a year or 6 years or 17 years, nobody knows. But this system allows us to just step back. Mike McKeska doesn't have to go out and answer calls in the middle of the night wherever Mike went. Maybe he's answering one now. There he is. Mike didn't have to go out in the middle of the night and deal with that. These people are doing it. And they're happy to do that because they don't want to lose their jobs. They don't want to lose their system. And for the most part, the customers, there's probably 2 or 3 that don't like their water supplier. But most of these people are very loyal to their water supplier. They've been out there for years. Some have been on there for generations. I've met all their board members, and most of them's parents were on the board too. And so they don't want that change until it has to happen. Now, they're all smart enough to know that change is coming, growth is coming, but they don't want it to come soon. And so I think this is a great example of this city, like just because we can take it over, just because we can kick you out, that doesn't mean we need to yet. And so you'll have that option someday. Someday it'll happen. They know it's coming, just don't know when. You'll just do it when it's the right time, when it really needs to happen, not just because you can. So that's my speech.
Okay, so, thank you for, that information. I guess my question would be, do we know, we anticipate that the cost to the customers is gonna increase, or we don't know that yet?
And that's the part I didn't get into. So we'll pass an ordinance, a rate ordinance. And the rate ordinance will basically say, we adopt Lawrence Water Supply Corporation's rates for this class of customers.
Okay,
So their rates won't change. And you can word the ordinance if you choose to do so. This is up to the city council. You can word the ordinance so that every time they raise their rates or lower them, that doesn't usually happen in the real world, not in government world anyway, or anywhere else probably, they just automatically go up. Now, if you don't want to do it that way, every time Lawrence raises their rates, they're going to raise their rates, they can tell you, and then you can pass another ordinance every couple of years if you choose to do that. I would recommend that you just go ahead and say, make it happen automatically. But that's up to the council, of course, too. And that can change, future councils change how you want to do that. But, yeah, the rates will stay the same. So if, just like I said, with those two people living side by side, they're paying whatever they're paying right now. They'll pay after this is over with, and they'll both pay the same thing to each other as well. So rates will stay the same for all of those folks, as they are now in Lawrence. They'll still pay their bill to Lawrence at the same rate as they're paying to Lawrence.
which I like that model, but what, if I'm the two employees, what if I wanted to give myself a raise and then raise the rates? What mechanism do we have in place to kind of have input as to?
Yeah, they're still, they're still going to be a corporation even if they don't operate part of ours. So their operations, as far as how much they pay their two employees, or how much they pay for electricity, or did they need to buy that fancy new lawnmower? That's still going to be their responsibility, whether they're involved or not.
Okay.
At the point that they raise rates too high, then we can just say 180 days where Mike McKess is coming to take over.
Right, okay.
And that would just be one of the factors that maybe would make you take it over sooner. Right now, they're very responsible, but you never know who's going to be working there in the future.
Yeah, so the remedy is that we take it over.
Absolutely.
Okay, got it.
And they know that, and if that happens, it'll probably put them out of business.
Right.
Because when they get down to only about 40% of their customers, 30% of their customers, they don't have enough customers to make themselves viable any longer.
Got it. Okay. Anybody have any questions for?
Yes. Ladies first.
I was just wondering about, like, on the maintenance side. So nothing will change for the people who live out there, that they know who to call?
Yeah.
If there's an issue, and that it will still be the same?
Same office, same phone number, everything's the same.
Okay.
We don't want to confuse anybody, we don't want to upset anybody, we don't want anybody coming down to City Hall yelling at y'all because, what did you do to me? Because we don't need that, it just doesn't need to happen.
Okay.
That was one of my.
Yeah, the only difference is, if nobody does answer that phone, if nobody does show up, there's a backup. They can say, well, gee, we're not coming, so call the city. So that it's just like an extra layer, but hopefully they'll never, ever call the city because they won't need to, because right now that's who they're calling. We don't want to change that.
What I want to ask is, I know you use the word, I guess for the lack of a better word, kick them out. I mean, does that mean we have the authority to discontinue the contract?
Yeah.
Or just, okay.
Yeah, you can, because again, it's like hiring me, it's like hiring your city attorney, any contractors, any other contractors you have, you can just say, you don't work for me anymore. Now, that first one, you should not do that, but you have the authority to do that. You can just say, you know what, we're just gonna hire, I mean, even if you don't like them, you could even go hire U.S. Water Works or some company to operate.
And I'll just.
It doesn't even have to be them.
This is the follow-up item from an item that is a voting item today. So later on in the agenda, you'll have opportunity to vote on our updated filing, our amended filing with the PUC related to Lawrence Water Supply. Everything John presented tonight doesn't take effect until the PUC approves our filing. And so this is a long, drawn-out event because you only slowly take over these water supply corporations because you do it through a Public Utility Commission process. So what we're doing here is we're getting council permission to get this contract in place, but this contract doesn't need to be in place until the PUC raises their hand and says, hey, I agree with this other item that's called that second amendment that you see later in the agenda. So it's really a companion item for that.
Yeah. Now, just to add on to that, the good news is, I think, the PUC doesn't have to approve this. They just have to approve the amendment. Once that amendment's done, you have the authority to hire a contractor, a competent contractor, whether that's another a special district or Bob's Water Supply Company. So PUC didn't have to do that, but the other's got to go first. And the estimate is 2 to 6 months. State government, I'm assuming 6, but maybe they'll surprise me and it'll be 2. But it'll happen sometime in 2023. But we don't know when. It'll be a while before it comes back for actually in action.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Good. Thank you, sir. Our next item on the agenda is discuss approval of the Kaufman County Tax Collections Contract. This is City Secretary Don Stahl.
Mayor and council, there is a Kaufman County Assessments and Collections Contract on page 74 of your packet. This is the collection contract between the City of Terrell and the Kaufman County Tax Assessor. This is the same standard contract that we've had previously with them. That describes the services that they provide. On page 2, if you can see paragraph 5, they did add that we are required to submit the tax rate, the adopted tax rate, no later than the 3rd Wednesday of September. They did add one other thing in 14, section 14 on page 4, which is a standard thing that they're adding to all contracts now. And on the very last page, which is page 6 or page 79 of the packet, that it has the per parcel cost for the tax collections for 2023. And I will be happy to answer any questions.
Oh, no change from 22 to 23?
No, sir.
All right. Anybody have any comments or questions for Ms. Still? Nope. Okay. Next item on the agenda. That was just a discussion. There's no consideration on it.
No,
Next
sir.
item on the agenda is discuss agreement for professional services for porch tank improvements. This is our Director of Utilities, Mike McKeska.
Good evening. What's in the packet is a combination of a presentation about tanks in general, and then an agreement with Freeze and Nichols. And we have a couple of folks from Freeze and Nichols here tonight. Scott Mon has been here numerous times off and on over the years. Amanda Powers is a senior project manager, I believe is the title. She's been with Freeze about 16 years. She's going to go over this presentation. When you get towards the end, there is a slide that talks about the scope, basic scope of services that's included in the agreement. Okay, so we weren't intending to go over the agreement itself. It's there, but she's going to cover the key items in that. This project is going to be mostly funded through Texas Water Development Board. We had the last loan that was closed in December, and so we have funds available to start this, the design and the construction. With the increased cost, it's not likely that the money we have is going to cover all of the construction cost on this. And so next 18 months, 24 months, we'll probably be looking at an additional loan to cover that gap that we're probably going to expect because of construction costs unless they come down. Just kind of a heads up. The agreement, I will tell you, is not a complete design scope. What Amanda's gonna talk about this and how we need to both select a site and also do some modeling, and then also meet all the TWDB requirements. And then once we know from there, then we'll be able to finalize an amendment to this for final design, okay? Because depending on where we site the tank, it's gonna affect the scope of work, okay? So for design. So anyway, heads up, Amanda, come on up, and I'll let her go through this, and then we'll see if you have any questions.
Thank you. Amanda?
Yes, thank you. Well, good evening. As Mike said, I'm going to go through a presentation on elevated storage tanks. So first off, we're going to talk about what are elevated storage tanks and how do they work. and then kind of talk through what's the preliminary work, what's the scope that we'll be diving into, and then detailed elevated storage tank design items that we'll be looking into once we've identified the site for the elevated storage. So why do we want elevated storage tanks? Because you all like pressure in your home when you open your faucet in your sink, in your shower. We can provide pressure one of two ways, with pumping or with elevated storage. Elevated storage provides an additional capacity, and it also provides a more efficient operation than just using pumps to provide that pressure in your homes and that pressure maintenance. Elevated storage tanks are typically divided into two sections, where you've got a portion of that water storage reserved for fire flow or emergencies. And so having that elevated storage provides that fire protection for the community. The elevated storage, the other half of the elevated storage, is your water supply. That's what maintains that pressure, is that elevation that comes naturally with the elevated storage tank, so that you're not turning on your pumps every time you want to up the pressure in the system. Here you can kind of see a visual example of that. There's a lot of details in here. All you need to know is that red line, that height also equates to pressure. So that the higher that line is, the more pressure you have in your system. So the way the system will work is you use your pump to fill up that tank. So you can plan when you're turning your pumps on and off. Whereas if you don't have that elevated storage tank, your pump has to respond to the demands of the system. This situation here, your elevated storage tank can respond to the demands of the system. When your tank's draining, here's an example of how your elevated storage tank can provide that additional capacity. You see that red line, as soon as it starts to dip down, you've got water flowing from that tank. So using that pump and the tank in conjunction, that keeps that red line high and keeps it from falling too much. And so thereby your elevated storage tank is helping to maintain that pressure when the demands are high. So this is a depiction of peak demand. You'll be using your pump and your elevated storage. What we have to do to identify how to add this elevated storage into your system is we have to model it. We have to know where we need to add that pressure into your system. The picture on your left with a red and a blue line that are kind of all over the place, that is a system that's not modeled. It works best when your elevated storage tanks can float together. And so that's what the model is going to tell us, is where these tanks act well together. And if we're putting them in different locations, we all know the world's not flat, right? So we have to identify what the overflow elevation is in the tank, what that proper elevation is to maintain that pressure in the system equally with both of your elevated storage tanks. This is a picture of different types of elevated storage tanks that you'll see. Some of them are outdated. Reason being, just life cycle does not make sense typically. You've got a multi-leg tank in your system, and you've got a composite tank in your system. Composite is what you'll see. That's usually more cost effective, especially when you look at the life cycle for any kind of capacity that's greater than 500,000 gallons. Anything that's less, you can look at using a multi-leg or a steel tank. But a majority of what you'll see these days are the composite, which means the base, the pedestal, that is concrete, and the bowl itself that holds the water, that is steel. So here are your two tanks. The South Elevated Storage Tank is a composite, and the Poetry Elevated Storage Tank, that's your multi-leg steel tank. It's about 1 million gallons, so these days what we look at is a composite tank. That's going to be your more cost-effective solution for a new elevated storage tank. Here you see a map of where the existing tank is. It's on a very small site. You can always see the storage tanks from the aerial by looking for the circle. This site is about 150 by 75 in a triangular shape. We're looking for a new tank, and the site conditions that we need, we're looking for 200 by 200, preferably 250 by 250. So we need some additional room than the current site provides. This existing tank, we want to keep in operation while we build the replacement tank. That way we can keep your pressures maintained throughout the system. So that's kind of why we need to look for a new site, see what's out there. And this is also a picture of why you want to consider an elevated storage tank. This yellow, it's a huge development potential that you've got. This elevated storage would provide that additional capacity and help maintain the pressure for this development, as well as the existing area that your tank serves. Some of the detailed items that we'll get into once we have settled on the study that we need to look at is we need to detail the site layout, how the tank's going to be accessed and maintained. We need to figure out the exact elevations of all the piping and the storage of the water, where that's going to go to help maintain system pressures. And then we're going to look at the yard piping. We don't know if the piping to the tank has to be 500 feet or 1,500 feet. So that's step one, is to identify where the site is. Then we can go into these details. And you can also see there's lots of design standards that we'll have to follow. There are about 4 tank manufacturers that can bid on this job. When this goes out to bid, we'll be talking with them and make sure we're drawing up interest. Something that a lot of people are usually concerned about with elevated storage tanks, council usually has a very strong opinion, is lighting on the tank, how the logo's gonna look, how you're lighting it, if you're lighting it on the tank or if you're lighting it from the ground. So there will be a little bit of discussion on that during the siting to make sure we have enough room to provide adequate site lighting. But that's something that's gonna come in more detail with the detailed design. So this is our current, what we've written in the agreement as our current scope of work. We've got to find sites, potential sites for these elevated storage tanks. We're gonna look for up to 3 sites. We're gonna look at land availability. We've also got to do some environmental investigations of the lands that we're looking at. We're going to look to see how close it is to power so we can power the site very easily. And with anything you put up in the air, you've got to coordinate with FAA, make sure we're not causing any issues there. With that, we're going to develop pipeline alignments. As I mentioned earlier, we don't know if it's 500 feet or 1,500 feet. So once we've identified the sites, then we can do a route analysis to see what's the best way to get the water to and from the tank. We'll look at the model, make sure we are selecting sites and elevations that have your tanks operating in parallel. So those are nice smooth waves that you see when you overlay your tank elevations. And we're gonna determine the required size of the tank. What's going to serve your existing and your future demands on the system, what's going to keep the pressures up in the system. We will prepare and submit to Texas Water Development Board, and then after we get that approval, we will move forward with a detailed design of the elevated storage tanks. So with that, open it up to questions.
All right, so if I understood correctly, there's money still available for the design part.
Oh, there is the TWDB loan included about $4 million. Okay, so that's plenty of money to do the design, the preliminary design, get through the TWDB process. This agreement, by the way, is not to exceed $201,990, I believe, between the primary scope and then the special services. There is the $8,300 or so in special services, and what that's for is if it's needed to do some pressure monitoring out in the system on some of the larger mains to make sure it calibrates with the model. They're gonna update the model that they have to do, what is it called? Extended period simulation, I think is the phrase. And it's basically to continue to look at, again, it ties back into the sizing. So there's gonna be a model update and then just to make sure it's calibrated properly. They may need that. We're gonna use the pressure readings from the Ally meters off of the AMI project. We have meters around town, but they're not on these larger mains. And if Freeze thinks they need to do some checks on, make sure the pressures is close or the same on the larger mains, then we have the special services. Okay, so, but the $200,000, like I said, we have about $4 million as part of that loan. So once we, as Amanda said, once you cite this and get through TWDB, then we'll negotiate a final design. And then we'll still have a few $1 million to get going on the project. And then we will know what the bids are as well and know what kind of where we're at and what it looks like. Another question?
Do we know what the current cost of a water, the composite, I guess it is? What are they going for right now? If we were to, I know we're not, but just to give us an idea of what kind of money we're looking at.
Before she answers that.
Yes.
The current tank is 1 million gallons. The slide, I believe, is on page 90 that showed kind of that area of potential development. We're anticipating we're going to have to go to 1.25 to 1.5 million gallon capacity to make sure we can meet the future demands as well as stay ahead of the TCEQ requirements on the number of gallons per connection and all this because, it's just, we just need to do that. I'll just stop at that, okay, without going into detail. Without going into detail.
No.
But the tanks, we were warned by Freeze, by the Freeze and Nichols team, a while back that, man, have y'all seen some of these costs for ground storage, for elevated storage tanks going up? Now, I'll let Amanda talk about that. So.
I'd say pre-COVID, when prices were a little bit stable, this would probably be $2.5 million. We've seen double what we would typically expect. In some cases, a little bit more than double. It's going to depend a lot on the site that we choose, how much pipe we've got to include in the contract, what kind of foundation we're bearing on is going to play a big role in the cost. Hopefully, by the time this actually goes to bid, cost will settle back down a little bit more. Right now, they are quite high.
So 4 to 5 million on the store. That's a 1.5 million? Huh?
I think we're thinking, are you saying that's for the 1.5 million gallon?
1 to 1.25, yeah.
Okay. We're anticipating it's going to be around $5 million or more.
Okay.
I should say, right now, based on what we're hearing. Because of the pipeline work, property acquisition, so forth, everything.
Oh, you know what?
Everything combined.
No. Does anybody have any comments or questions?
How much land are you gonna get, Mike?
Well, as Amanda said, the minimum, ideal minimum would be that 250 by 250.
Don't you think you're probably gonna wind up with around an acre, don't you imagine?
I
think.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably about an acre. At minimum.
Just for quick clarification, I know we're talking about 4 million plus, I guess, but it's 200,000. Is that separate from the 200,000, which is the BD fund? And is those funds, the 200, is it going towards like stuff for research site, feasibility, all those type of things? Is that what the $200,000?
Yes, what Amanda talked about on site selection, the engineering feasibility report, the environmental review that TWDB requires, all the coordination with TWDB, because there's sometimes a lot of back and forth with them on questions they have on both. So all of that time is built into the $201,000.
That's not to exceed.
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct.
And one other thing, in regards to the composite tanks, I know you recommended that, right? That's the most efficient in terms of pressure. Did you mention what is I think I missed that part.
So more in the terms of cost. We could go a composite, which is concrete for the pedestal, the
Yes.
vertical portion, and steel for the bowl. Steel requires a lot of maintenance. Composite is concrete and steel, and that concrete reduces the maintenance that's required because it's concrete, not steel. Your other option is to go all steel, which means that vertical piece that's not even holding the water, that's going to require a lot of maintenance and recoating. And so when you look at the two, especially anything that's over $500,000, you're going to be spending less over the life cycle with a composite. When you're under $500,000, the steel may be a little bit cheaper capital. These days, that's not really the case anymore. It used to be probably 3 years ago. But overall, your composite, that's going to be a lower life cycle cost.
Makes sense. Thank you.
What's the life cycle on these composites?
It's a structure, we're thinking probably about 50 to 60 years.
Okay. Anyone else?
Only other comment I would add is, why did we select Freeze? They did the south tank. They've designed their pump station back 20 years ago now. Scott was involved in that 20 years ago. He's almost just as young, and they've done a lot of work. The model they have, we lean on Freeze and their expertise on a lot of the system analysis, and that's why we went with them, why we selected them. Okay. So.
All right, thank you, Mike. Thanks, Scott. Next item on the agenda is business items. Greg, item 10.1.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, we bring to you tonight a discussion and consideration of a construction plat for Fulson Terrell Edition, lots 1R, 2, and 3, Block B, being 28.939 acres out of the John C. Hale Survey, abstract number 202, City of Terrell, Kaufman County, Texas, located at the northeastern corner of Spur 557 and FM 148, east of Platinum Dealership, CP 22-15.
Thank you, Mr. Shumpert. This will be handled by Mr. Rogers. Steve?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We have with us tonight Cameron Sloan. He's back here. He's with Tignall and Perkins. He's a senior project manager for them. He's handled this project for us. So this is carving out 6 acres, and you're making a 4-acre dealership in one. You have another about 2-acre lot next to it that can be developed. This is immediately east of the Platinum dealership. If you would look at the map there on page, thank you. So you can see the red, it constitutes the larger lot, and the 4 acres is the smaller piece that butts right up to Platinum Way and the Platinum dealerships. Then there's a smaller 2-acre lot next to it. So they're carving that out of a larger piece here. They're gonna build a Hyundai dealership. It's being moved from in town out there. If you'll be so kind as to go to a couple more sheets to agenda page 110, I believe it is. There's a site plan. So again, you have the existing dealership here on the left side of the map. At the top of the page, what's highlighted in the gray shade is the extension of Apache Trail and a 16-inch water main, and then there's a little link piece to tie in Platinum Way to what's already been built by the dealerships. That'll be their primary access to the dealership off of Platinum Way, and then they'll be able to access Apache Trail in the back with the driveway shown there. I think it's 35,000 square feet. I'm not exactly sure on the building, but again, it's a dealership, and then there's an empty lot next to it. They submitted all the plans. They've been to P&Z, and we recommend approval of this construction plat. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Does anybody have any questions of Mr. Rogers? Thank you, Steve. This is a discuss and consider item. Council, is there a motion? Have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion from Grady Simpson, District 2, a second from Andrea Reese, District 5, to approve the construction plat for Fulson Terrell Addition, lots 1R, 2, 3, Block B. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries with unanimous vote of those present. Our next item on the agenda is 10.2.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, we bring to you tonight to discuss and consider a construction plat for Terrell Market Center, lots 1 and 2, Block A, being 1.287 acres of land out of the John C. Hale Survey, abstract number 202, City of Terrell, Kaufman County, Texas, located east of Discount Tire and west of the Fairfield Inn and Suites, CP 22-16.
Mr. Rogers.
Yeah, Mayor, we have with us tonight John Baker. He's been back here patiently waiting. He's a project manager for Bowler Engineering, and he's been helping handle this project. So you have a single lot that's in this addition. It's being split into 2 lots. It's about 1.2 acres, splitting it into 2.6 acre parcels. So if you see on the map here, on the left side of this red area is Discount Tire. On the east side of it is the Fairfield Inn and Suites, and this is an empty lot between those two. And I want to split it into 2 separate lots. If you'll go one more slide, please. And so it may be a little bit hard to see here, but again, Discount Tires on the left and Fairfield Inn and Suites is on the right. And these are the 2 lots they're creating, and there's a little U-shaped fire lane to serve both lots that we've worked with the developer on to make work that's compliant with our fire codes. And so the lot they want to develop is the lot on the left in this drawing here. That is lot 6 that they're shortening down. They're creating a lot 9 to the east of it there for some other development. But basically, I think the intention is to build a KFC, a Kentucky Fried Chicken on this lot on the left is the immediate request. And this comes from, again, this was a PD formed on this area in 2008 that covers this area here, and that's attached in here. The ordinance is at the very back of this item here. Now, I'll be happy to answer any questions, Mayor.
Does anybody have any comments or questions for Mr. Rogers? Okay, thank you, Steve. Thank you, Mr. Rogers. Our next, this is a discuss and consider. Is there a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion from Grady Simpson, District 2, a second from Andrea Reese, District 5, to approve the construction plat for Market Center, Terrell Market Center, lots 1 and 2, Block A. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye. Aye. Any opposed?
I'm sorry, I didn't
Hey.
quite catch that.
Who did that?
Please say that again.
You can hit it with the hammer.
I apologize. I don't know. I didn't say anything.
Siri.
Is that Siri?
That was Siri.
Why is she listening to our meeting? I
don't know.
Okay, I'm sorry. So I have a motion. Must be Forney listening to this thing, right?
It is.
We have a motion from Grady Simpson, District 2, a second from Andrea Reese, District 5, to approve the construction plat for Terrell Market Center, lots 1 and 2, Block A. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries with unanimous vote of those present. Our next item on the agenda is 10.3.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, item 10.3, we discuss and consider resolution number 2054, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Terrell, Texas, approving the second amendment to the Utilities Installment Purchase Contract for a portion of the Lawrence Water Supply Corporation.
Okay, Mr. Godwin.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. There's a PowerPoint somewhere. Maybe we don't need it. I was here last week to discuss this, and it's a fairly simple thing. I think, in any case, this is, again, as Mr. Sims said, this goes back to the Lawrence Water Supply Corporation from the previous item. We went to, through state statute 13.255, we can file a notice with for the last one. Never mind. So let me just continue. We filed a notice with the state of Texas for the PUC, with the PUC that we're going to take over the Lawrence Water Supply Corporation, again, the portion that's inside the city. We filed that back in 2022. There were some technical issues as far as mapping and acreage, so we filed an amendment, which is attached to your agenda. And then, since then, we've had the thing, which I've talked about already too, which was, gee, we're PUC and we don't like all that creative dual certification leaseback thing. So this second amendment takes all that stuff out, just goes back to basic. We're taking it over, and there's a 6-month period of time. If you fight it, in this case, Lawrence is still cooperating. We expect them to approve this second amendment to the purchase agreement next week at their board meeting, or week after next. But before the end of this month, we have a deadline of July 31st. So January 31st for them to approve this. So probably you don't have any questions, but if you do, I'm available.
Thank you, Mr. Godwin. Does anybody have any questions? As promised, this is back up for vote. So, thank you. All right. This is a discussion consider item. This is resolution number 2054. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve resolution 2054.
We have a motion. Is there a second? We have a motion from Andrea Reese, District 5, a second from Grady Simpson, District 2, to approve resolution number 2054. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries with unanimous vote of those present. Our next item on the agenda is 10.4. Mr. Shumpert.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, we bring to you tonight resolution number 2053, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Terrell, Texas, approving the purchase of 2 Pierce Velocity Pumper fire trucks through the HGAC Cooperative Purchasing Program, authorizing the city manager to negotiate and execute all documents necessary for the purchase of 2 fire trucks for the Terrell Fire Department and establishing an effective date.
This is Fire Chief Shane LaCroix.
Mayor and council, I come before you this afternoon to just kind of, I've added a few slides that I'd like to go over so that we can make sure that all the information is out there. I believe that all relevant information needs to be presented to council that relates to my request, and these slides have been added at the beginning of the presentation, but the rest of the slides are still available if any questions arise. So the first of these 3 slides provides both historical and projected data related to call volume. Call volume is the number of calls of service that we receive on an annual basis. This data reflects the current historical demands that are made on the services that we are providing, and is some of the data used to project future service demands. So as you see here, we're looking back from 2016 to present to 2022. 2016 as far as our reporting data software will allow us to go. So as you can see, we kind of had a little, around 2018, 2019, it kind of leveled off a little bit. Interesting, that's when COVID started around 2019, and the runs kind of moved down because people were scared to call. But then they picked back up in 2020 and 21 and 22 and as they rose up. So, one of the interesting parts to this is that back in 2016, our call volume was around 3,073 calls. In 2022, it rose to 4,924. That's a 60% increase in call volume in that 6 years. So because of that, we want to look 6 years ahead. We've got 6 years of data behind us, so we can look ahead and kind of give a educated guess of where that may head. So when we did an average of that, it turned out to be about 9% increase per year of calls. So this is projected out on the graph, so you can kind of see that, in 2028, we're estimating, over 8,000 calls for service may be what we hit. It's like 8,258 calls. But also, I thought it was important to look at our last, previous 2 years, because they may paint more of a picture of what we're going to be expecting. So I also wanted to graph it as well. And so I did. And it's my thoughts that somewhere between these two lines is where we're going to reside, you know, in the next coming years. Overlapping calls. Now, you know, I've discussed this and brought it up in council before, but I think this is the real good numbers to look at to find out where we're headed and what can we expect. I think they're the best indicator for the demands of service that are being placed on us. And we can, again, project those out. So currently, this is how we stand. We started out 2016, we had about 20% of the total calls were overlapping calls. When 2022, we rose to 43% of the calls that we're getting, are overlapping calls. So to project, what we may experience in the next 6 years, an average increase in overlapping calls from 2016 to 2022 was calculated. Based on this calculation, an average of 4% is used to project out the possible increases in overlapping for the 2023 through 2028. Days based on only operating 2 fire stations with 2 frontline response vehicles as we currently do. So it's expected it's going to continue to rise as well. The other interesting part of this data is, so we look at 2028. So at 2028, we're at 67% of the time we have overlapping calls. But what that also tells you is only 33% of the time do we have an engine ready to respond to the next call. So because of this is why we're looking at both, additional fire station, but apparatus as well. Because whenever the fire station comes in, it can move in date. The engine can be put to use as soon as it gets here. Station 2 would be able to house 2 apparatus. So if we put 2 apparatus in service at Station 2 and then 1 apparatus in here at Station 1, that's 3, that cuts these numbers down, these overlapping calls. Because they don't start to overlap until we have all our units are out. So I revised this slide just to show that the year models of the engines would be 2024 if we ordered them together. Now, this is taken into consideration if we didn't order them together, because the price difference for the second engine at 1.3 is not correct. It'd be 1.2 because of the $24,000 that we get for 2 engine purchase. So, staff recommends that council, approve resolution 2053, which approves the city manager to negotiate and execute all documents necessary for the purchase of 2 fire engines on behalf of the Terrell Fire Department. I'd be happy to answer any questions y'all may have.
So, Chief, your anticipation is that the cost will continue to go up for the fire
apparatus?
Yes.
Yeah, they're telling us they're anticipating 20% per year.
Okay, and then on your slides, the projections were, if we take no action, then we can pretty much assume that rate of increase is going to continue with no action. Is that right?
Correct. Well, the call volume is going to continue to increase. It's just the ability to be able to respond to it.
And I just want to make sure I understand. So then you're showing those graphs so that you can show the demand warrants the need for us to act now.
That's correct.
Okay, just want to be clear on that. All right. Does anybody have any questions or comments for the chief?
Well, I would like to say I'm impressed that it can be used day one. So we're dealing with some issues and now, and as Terrell continues to grow, which it is, Terrell is coming, whether we whether we realize it or not. And it's better to be prepared now than to sit back and wait.
I'm very impressed how you did so much work to get the slides to show the increase. And it's the same thing, the what ifs, the it may. I don't want to make decisions, all my decisions today just depending on those two things, but good work. I applaud you for your work in adding those slides and doing additional work. I still have a concern, $1.2 million. It's a concern. We haven't even acquired the land for the new fire station. Last year it was a strategic plan. The presentation you gave us today with these slides, you showed there's a need. The story changed. I'm okay with that. You might have just had time to research, think about the need to show me that, and I'm okay. But I just ask, even if we delayed this 6 to 8 months, we'll be closer to the new budget time, because surprises like this just don't make me feel good as a council member. I trust your abilities. I know you know what you're doing. You put out a good product for the city of Terrell, and I am proud. But like I told you last week, I would have liked to seen this $1.2 million inclination. Maybe they didn't have the 2-for-1 back 3 months ago, but now we're here and we got it. But I do think we need to delay this a few months because we hadn't acquired the land. We hadn't broken ground for Station 3. But with the slides you showed today, you showed, well, let's change it around. It ain't the strategic plan, because we had the strategic plan in front of us. And even in August, you know, when we have our retreat, this is the things we want to hear. And I may even just encourage you, give us a wish list. It may be just something crazy, far-fetched. I want 4 fire trucks. I want them all to be new. Tell us that. But maybe that'll help us so we don't get back to this point every time about 2 or 3 months after budget, bam, 1.2 million, bam, 1.4 million. It's just, so with all that being said, I'm gonna have to get escorted to my car tonight, but I'm not in agreement with the purchase of 2 fire trucks.
Well, I just wanted to ask again, because I'm just remembering from last week, is, so like for this fiscal year, the only amount we would really have to pay was that 400-something thousand,
Yes, ma'am.
correct?
Just for the loose equipment.
And then that gives us the opportunity, because we know that it's going to be that additional 1.2 and the other, for both of those trucks, for each truck, to plan that and budget for that over the next 2 fiscal years.
That's correct.
Okay, I just want to make sure I understood that.
The reason it's being brought is the cost savings if we purchase it now versus if we wait and purchase it when, in the strategic plan that we had it lined out for next year in FY '24. By moving it up, you can save close to $250,000 is what we're looking
I
at.
see this as being very fiscally responsible, because we're saving money by doing 2 at once, but also spreading out that cost over a 3-year period.
Yes, ma'am.
I told you again, the market can go the other way as well. And I just want you to be aware of that. And I'm just not for
Well, this
buy now.
conversation is with the chief and not amongst us yet. Until we get a motion, then we can discuss amongst each other. So these need to be directed directly to the chief, please.
I'm not for buying now and paying later. It's a very common practice in America, the American way. But I'm not for that, chief. And also, I think we just need to think about the future, and just by delaying this a few months, again, the market can go the opposite way, okay? We just have to keep that in mind, but It may not. It may. There's those words.
One of the things that we're trying to avoid is that at 21 to 22 months for delivery time. As long as we get this order in by the end of this month, we can get both trucks on we keep our line, you know, in the manufacturing line. If we wait, then we'll lose where it's at right now, and that's gonna push it out even further, so when the truck would get here. So, as y'all remember, this year we was already approved for one truck, and that's how we found out about the savings if we was to get it two truck. And so I want to make sure we pass that information along to council, again, so y'all can make that decision.
I want the one truck. Chief, I want the one truck. Let's get the one truck. Let's do it. The one truck, great. That's where I stand.
And this is to hold, Chief, the delivery date.
That's correct.
If we don't act on it, or if we delay it, then you'll be delayed on the delivery of the trucks.
That's correct.
Okay, just want to make sure okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, council, we have a discuss and consider for resolution number 2053. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve resolution 2053.
Have a motion, is there a second? Second. We have a motion and a second. We have a motion from Andrea Reese, District 5, a second from Grady Simpson, District 2, to approve resolution number 2053 as presented. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
So we have a 3-2 vote.
Yes, you're voting aye, Mayor?
Aye, yes, I'm in the
Okay.
affirmative, so
So it'd be a
it's a
3-1
3-1 vote. I'll let the record reflect that this is a 3-1 vote in favor of resolution number 2035.
5-3.
Oh, 2053. I'm sorry, I'm dyslexic a little bit. So it passes. Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, we will discuss and consider on second reading ordinance number 2953, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Terrell, Kaufman County, Texas, amending Appendix 2 zoning ordinance of the City of Terrell, Article 3 zoning districts, Section 23 manufactured homes MH district, Article 4 use regulations, Section 32.2 use charts, and Article 5 development standards, Section 44 definitions as set forth in Exhibit A attached here to and made a part hereof for all purposes, providing for severability and providing an effective date. This does come to you tonight on second reading.
We have a consent agenda item. Is there a motion on it?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Have a motion, is there a second? Second. Have a motion by Andrea Reese, District 5, and a second from Grady Simpson, District 2, to approve ordinance number 2953 on second reading. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries with unanimous vote of those present. We have no executive session. We are adjourned. Thank you, council.